They called her broken. The hospital review board used different words, of course. Professional words, clinical words. Abandonment of post. Failure to follow protocol. Coincidental survival. But Mara Bennett
What was
knew
that?
what they meant.
I don't know.
Broken.
We have to go.
4 colleagues
Now,
dead.
before it gets
4
worse.
body bags
Okay, let's
wheeled
move.
past her in that Aurora hospital corridor while she stood there alive, trembling, trying to explain about the feelings. The crawling certainty
What
that had
have
made
you
her
done?
run. The instinct
had
that had
to
saved her
protect
life and condemned
This is
theirs.
too much.
Nobody wanted to hear about instinct. 3 years later, she was still trying to outrun that hallway, still failing. The fluorescent lights of Echo's diner hummed their midnight song. Mara's hands shook as she poured coffee into the white ceramic mug, the liquid surface trembling like a lie detector. She steadied her wrist against the counter, breathed, counted to 5 the way Dr. Silas Brennan had taught her. The tremors didn't stop. They never really stopped. "You gonna stand there all night or you gonna serve that coffee?" Jasper Quinn's voice cut through the empty diner like a blade through butter. The owner stood by the register, 65 years old, and mean as a snake, counting bills with the kind of precision that came from a lifetime of not trusting anyone. Mara picked up the mug, walked it to table 6, set it down in front of the man who'd been sitting in the same corner booth for 6 months straight. Adrian Voss. She didn't know his name yet, didn't know anything except that he always ordered black coffee and never drank it. Always left a $20 bill for a $3 cup. Always watched her with eyes the color of storm clouds over granite. He was watching her now. "Thank you," he said. His voice was like expensive whiskey. Smooth, dark, the kind that burned going down. Mara nodded, didn't meet his eyes. Turned back toward the counter where 4 other customers sat scattered like chess pieces on a board she didn't understand. A businessman in a gray suit reading something on his phone. A couple sharing a basket of fries, not talking, not touching. A woman doing a crossword puzzle, her pen moving with mechanical precision. And Adrian Voss in his corner, booth, coffee cooling in front of him, watching. Always watching. Mara's phone buzzed in her apron pocket. She pulled it out, read the text from her stepmother. "Rent due tomorrow. Don't be late again." No greeting, no signature. Just the reminder that Mara was a burden. Had always been a burden. Would always be a burden. 20 years of being reminded. She deleted the text, pocketed the phone, reached for the prescription bottle she kept hidden behind the napkin dispenser. The label read, Sertraline 100 milligrams. Take 1 daily for anxiety. She'd already taken 2 today. The pills rattled as she opened the bottle. 3 left. The refill appointment was next Tuesday if she could afford the copay. If she could afford anything beyond rent and ramen and the desperate daily fight to keep her hands from shaking. "Mara," Jasper's voice again. Sharper this time. She looked up. He was glaring at her from behind the register, his face twisted into the expression he saved for her alone. Disappointment mixed with contempt. "Lisa called in sick. You're covering her section too." Lisa, the other waitress, 22 years old, pretty confident, everything Mara used to be before Aurora Hospital. Before the blood, before the review board that stripped her nursing license and left her with nothing but PTSD and a job pouring coffee for $3 an hour plus tips. "Okay," Mara said. What else could she say? She picked up the coffee pot, started her rounds. The businessman wanted a refill. The couple wanted ketchup. The crossword woman wanted nothing, just kept filling in squares with that mechanical precision, her pen scratching against paper like a clock counting down. 2:47 a.m. The diner was a tomb at this hour. Just the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of traffic on the highway, and Jasper counting money, and Mara trying not to think about Aurora Hospital. Trying and failing. The memory came anyway. It always came. She was 26. 3 years into her career as a trauma nurse. Good at her job. Great even. The kind of nurse who could start an IV on a coding patient in the dark. Who could talk down a psychiatric patient having a violent episode. Who could keep her head when everyone else was losing theirs. Until the day her instinct kicked in. It started as a feeling. A crawling sensation at the base of her skull, like spiders made of ice. She was doing rounds in the ICU when it hit her. Something's wrong. Something's coming. She couldn't explain it. Couldn't justify it. Just knew the way you know when someone's watching you in a dark parking lot. She'd pulled the charge nurse aside. "We need to evacuate ICU now." The charge nurse, Rebecca Martinez, 20 years in medicine, no patience for nonsense, had looked at her like she'd sprouted a second head. "Evacuate, why?" "I don't know. I just feel. Rebecca's voice could have frozen nitrogen. "We don't evacuate based on feelings, Mara. We evacuate based on protocols, fire alarms, Code situations, not feelings. Mara tried to explain. The words tangled in her throat, made her sound crazy, made her sound broken. In the end, she ran, walked away from her post, down the corridor, out the side door, into the parking lot where she stood shaking, trying to understand why her body was screaming danger when everything looked normal. The shots came 3 minutes later. Active shooter. 22-year-old male. History of psychiatric admissions. Walked into Aurora Hospital ICU with a semi-automatic rifle and opened fire. 4 nurses died. Rebecca Martinez, Tom Williams, Sarah Kim, Michael Foster. 4 colleagues who'd stayed at their posts, who'd followed protocol, who'd done everything right. 4 people who didn't trust Mara's instinct. 4 body bags. And Mara standing in the parking lot alive and whole and absolutely shattered. The investigation took 3 months. Hospital security footage showed everything. Mara abandoning her post, leaving her patients, running for no documented reason 3 minutes before the shooting started. The review board didn't call it cowardice. They were too professional for that. They called it failure to follow proper emergency protocols and abandonment of post during a critical incident, and stripped her license and left her with nothing but nightmares and a prescription for sertraline and the knowledge that she'd saved herself while 4 colleagues died. Survivor's guilt, Dr. Brennan called it. Mara called it the truth. The coffee pot was empty. Mara turned back toward the counter to brew a fresh pot. Her hands were shaking worse now. The memories always made it worse. She reached for the coffee filter, dropped it, watched it flutter to the floor like a surrender flag. Useless, Jasper muttered from the register. Loud enough for her to hear. Quiet enough to pretend he wasn't talking to her. Mara bent down, picked up the filter, started over. This was her life now. This was all it would ever be. She was halfway through brewing the fresh pot when she saw it. The red dot. It appeared on the wall behind table 6. Small, precise, moving with the kind of deliberate slowness that made Mara's stomach drop into her shoes, a laser sight. The crawling sensation hit her skull like a hammer. The same feeling from Aurora Hospital. Ice spiders, danger, run. But this time she didn't run. This time someone else was in the crosshairs. Adrian Voss sat in his booth, coffee untouched in front of him, completely unaware of the red dot crawling across his chest like a hunting spider. Mara's body moved before her brain caught up. Training from Aurora Hospital. Muscle memory from 3 years of trauma response. She grabbed the tray from the counter, the metal one heavy loaded with dirty dishes, and lunged toward table 6. The tray hit the floor with a sound like the world ending. Glass exploded, ceramic shattered, ketchup bottles burst across linoleum in abstract patterns of red that looked too much like blood. Mara threw herself between Adrian Voss and the window. Don't talk, she whispered. Her face was inches from his, close enough to smell expensive cologne and something else. Something cold, something not quite human. Don't move. His eyes met hers, gray, ancient, calm in a way that made her stomach twist. He didn't ask questions, didn't panic, just watched her with the stillness of someone who'd seen this before, who'd survived worse. The bullet came through the window with a sound like reality cracking open. It missed Mara's shoulder by inches. She felt the heat of it, the wind of its passage. It punched through the condiment shelf behind the booth, sending glass and metal fragments spraying across red vinyl. Adrian Voss didn't flinch, didn't blink, just kept staring at her with those impossible gray eyes while chaos erupted around them. Everybody down! Mara's voice cut through the screaming, command voice, nurse voice, the voice she'd used in Aurora Hospital when patients were coding and time was measured in heartbeats. The customers moved, but not like normal customers. The businessman dropped his phone, pulled a weapon from inside his jacket. Professional, practiced, like he'd been waiting for this. The couple stopped sharing fries, split up, flanked the windows, moving with synchronized precision that had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with military training. The crossword woman abandoned her puzzle, drew a knife from her purse. Not a pocket knife, a combat knife. And all of them moved too fast, inhumanly fast. Secure the perimeter, Adrian Voss said quietly. His voice carried despite the chaos. Despite Jasper screaming behind the register and the sound of traffic outside and Mara's heart hammering against her ribs like it wanted out. Find the shooter, leave witnesses intact. The businessman was already at the door, scanning the street with eyes that reflected the fluorescent light like an animal's. The couple flanked the broken window. Not crouching, not hiding. standing in full view of whoever had fired that shot like bullets, were an inconvenience rather than a threat. The crossword woman moved to the back exit, knife ready, posture perfect. None of them seemed surprised. None of them seemed human. Mara's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the edge of the booth. Her therapist said the tremors would fade eventually. That PTSD was just her body remembering how to be afraid. Right now, her body was remembering other things. The weight of tactical gear, the smell of gunpowder, the way Rebecca Martinez had looked at her in those last seconds before Mara ran, trusting protocol over instinct, trusting the wrong thing. But tonight, you saved my life. Adrian Voss's voice pulled her back. She looked down at him, really looked. Designer suit. Probably worth more than her car. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been 30 or 50 or anywhere in between. Pale skin that seemed to drink the fluorescent light rather than reflect it. And those eyes, watching her with an intensity that made her feel like a specimen under glass. I saw the laser, Mara managed. Her voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Training kicked in. Training. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You were a nurse. ICU. Aurora Hospital. I know. The words hit her like a physical blow. How do you... I make it my business to know things. He stood in one smooth motion. Too smooth. Too graceful. Like gravity was a suggestion rather than a law. And I've been watching you for 6 months, Mara Bennett, wondering what you were, what you could do. He adjusted his cuffs, pulled out a wallet, extracted $800 bills, and placed them on the table. For the damages, he said, and your discretion. I don't need your money. Yes, you do. His voice was gentle but firm, final. This diner is going to need repairs. Your manager will need an explanation. And you're going to need a reason to forget this happened. The businessman returned, leaned close, whispered something Mara couldn't hear. Adrian nodded, looked back at her. The shooter is gone, he said. You're safe. Everyone here is safe. He moved toward the exit. His people, because that's what they were, she realized his people fell into formation around him. Professional, military grade, the kind of security detail you saw protecting heads of state, or something worse. Wait, Mara's voice surprised her. Adrian stopped, hand on the door, looked back. She didn't know what made her look down at that moment. Some instinct, some whisper of wrongness in the back of her mind where the ice spiders lived. The chrome napkin dispenser sat on the counter, polished to a mirror shine. She could see herself in it, could see Jasper peeking out from behind the register, could see the couple by the window. She couldn't see Adrian Voss. The door stood open in the reflection. But the space where he stood was empty, a void in the shape of a person. Mara's breath caught in her throat. Adrian smiled. This time it did reach his eyes, cold and knowing. Smart girl, he said. Most people never notice. Then he was gone. The door swinging shut behind him, his security detail vanishing like smoke into the pre-dawn darkness. Outside, a black sedan pulled away from the curb. No headlights, no engine noise. Just there one moment and gone the next, disappearing into the maze of sleeping streets. Mara stood frozen, staring at the chrome dispenser, at her own pale reflection, at the empty space where a man should have been. Jesus Christ, Mara. Jasper emerged from behind the register, flour dusting his apron from where he'd hit the floor. His face was the color of old newspaper. What the hell was that? I don't know. Her voice sounded distant, hollow. I really don't know. But she did know. Somewhere deep in the part of her brain that had kept her alive at Aurora Hospital, that had made her see the laser, that saw patterns in chaos when everyone else saw random chance. She knew. The police arrived 14 minutes later. 2 patrol cars, 4 officers. They took statements, photographed the broken window, collected the bullet from where it had embedded in the wall. Drive-by shooting, they said. Wrong place, wrong time. Random violence in a neighborhood that was getting worse every year. They didn't ask about the man with no reflection. They didn't ask about the customers who'd moved too fast. They just wrote their reports and promised to follow up and left Jasper to deal with the insurance company. Mara's shift ended at 6 a.m. She clocked out, changed out of her uniform, opened her locker. The envelope was waiting. Plain manila. No postage, no name. Just tucked between her spare uniform and the photo of her Aurora Hospital unit. The one she kept meaning to take down but never did. Her hands were steady as she opened it. Inside 3 photographs. The first showed her apartment building. 2nd floor corner unit. Fire escape visible. Someone had taken it from street level probably yesterday morning based on the lighting. The second showed her walking to Dr. Brennan's office on Thursday, her therapy day. She was holding coffee from the shop next door, the one that knew her order by heart. The third was from tonight, the diner, the exact moment she'd stepped between the bullet and the man with no reflection. No note, no demands, just a message. "We see you." Jasper appeared behind her, made her jump. "You okay?" he asked. "You've been staring at your locker for 5 minutes." She closed the envelope, tucked it under her arm. "Yeah, just tired, after tonight." "I bet." He rubbed his face, exhaustion written in every line. "Insurance adjusters coming at 9. Police said it looked like a drive-by, wrong place, wrong time." He laughed, bitter. "This neighborhood, I keep telling myself it's getting better." Mara thought about the security detail, the synchronized movements, the way they'd swept the area with military precision. Yeah, wrong place, wrong time. She left through the back exit, scanned the alley before stepping out. Empty. Just dumpsters and graffiti and the gray promise of dawn. Her car was parked 2 blocks away. She'd learned not to park close, learned to keep escape routes open, learned that paranoia kept you breathing. The walk felt endless. Every shadow held a sniper. Every parked car hid a threat. She made it to her Honda without incident, locked the doors, checked the back seat. Nothing. The drive home took 12 minutes. She counted every one. Her apartment was exactly as she'd left it, neat, sparse, the kind of place that looked more like a way station than a home. She checked every room anyway, combat knife in hand, closet, bathroom, kitchen, under the bed. Clear. She made coffee she wouldn't drink, sat at her kitchen table, spread out the photographs. Whoever took these was professional. Good angles. High resolution. They'd been watching her for at least a week, maybe longer. Her phone buzzed, unknown number. She stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Mara Bennett, a woman's voice, professional, cold. "Who is this?" Mara asked. "Someone who saw what you did tonight. Someone who's very interested in meeting you." A pause. "Check your locker before you go home." Mara's throat went dry. "I already did." "Then you know we're serious." The voice was completely emotionless. "Coffee shop on 5th and Morrison. Sit outside, 30 minutes. And if I don't, then we'll have a very different conversation. One you won't enjoy." Another pause. 30 minutes, Mara. Don't be late." Click. Mara set the phone down carefully. She had 2 choices, run or meet. Running meant abandoning everything. Her guao, her routine, the fragile stability she'd built after Aurora Hospital. Meeting meant walking into another trap, but traps gave you information. And right now, information was the only weapon she had. She changed into jeans and a jacket, slipped the combat knife into her boot, then drove to 5th and Morrison, parked 3 blocks away, approached on foot. The coffee shop was one of those hipster places with reclaimed wood and overpriced lattes. At 6:45 a.m., it was mostly empty except for early risers and insomniacs. Mara bought black coffee, sat at an outdoor table where she could see the street. They arrived at exactly 7. 2 of them, a woman in her 40s, gray suit, government haircut, the kind of posture that screamed military background. A younger man, athletic build, the kind of coiled stillness that meant either martial arts training or something worse. They sat down without asking permission. "Mara Bennett," the woman slid a badge across the table. "Commander Thea Castellan, this is Agent Dante Roth. We need to talk about last night." Mara glanced at the badge. Federal, looked real. But she'd learned that real didn't mean trustworthy. "I already talked to the police. The police think it was a drive-by." Thea pulled out a tablet, turned it to face Mara. "We know better. Security footage from the diner, the laser, Mara stepping into the line of fire, the man with no reflection walking out unharmed." "Who is he?" Mara asked quietly. "His name is Adrian Voss," Thea said, "and he's not human." The words hung in the air like smoke. Agent Dante Roth watched her carefully, probably looking for disbelief. Panic. Mara gave him neither. "I saw the reflection," she said, "or the lack of one." Thea nodded. Something like respect crossed her face. "Then you're smarter than most." She swiped to another image. "Adrian Voss is what we call a high vampire. Over 300 years old. Controls most of the East Coast through a network of businesses and political connections." She paused. "He's also bound by something called the Blood Accords. Treaties signed in 1823 that keep the supernatural world hidden from civilians." Why are you telling me this? Because you're already involved. Thea swiped to another image. The diner. But from weeks ago, Mara serving coffee to different customers. Voss has been coming to that diner for 6 months. Always sits in the same booth. Always orders coffee he never drinks. You know why? Mara shook her head. The diner sits on neutral ground, a demilitarized zone where vampire politics are forbidden. He's been holding court there, using the treaty protections to meet with people he can't meet elsewhere. Thea leaned forward. Last night's shooting wasn't random. It was an assassination attempt, and you ruined it. I saved his life. You disrupted a 3-month operation. Dante spoke for the first time, voice hard. We've been tracking Voss's movements, building a case. That shooting was supposed to draw him out, make him break the accords. Instead, you made him look like a victim. Mara's coffee had gone cold in her hands. So what do you want from me? Thea and Dante exchanged glances. He's going to come back, Thea said. Men like Voss don't leave loose ends. He'll want to know why you helped him. Maybe recruit you. Maybe kill you. She paused. We want you to let him approach you. Wear a wire. Help us build a real case. And if I say no, then you're on your own when his enemies come calling. Because they saw you too, Mara, and they won't be as patient as we are. Mara looked down at her reflection in the cold coffee. Still there, still human, still breakable. I need time to think. You have 24 hours. Thea stood, slid a card across the table. After that, the offer expires and you're in this alone. They left. Mara sat in the morning sun, holding a business card and wondering how saving one life had condemned her own. Her phone buzzed again. Different number this time. A text message. The coffee looks terrible. You should try the place on 7th. Tonight at 10. Come alone. AV. He'd been watching her. Right now, maybe for weeks. Mara looked up, scanned the street, dozens of windows, hundreds of places to hide. She texted back. How do I know you won't kill me? The response came immediately. If I wanted you dead, you'd have died in that diner. See you at 10. Mara pocketed her phone, stood. The sun was rising over the city, painting everything golden red. She had 15 hours to decide which monster to trust. 15 hours to choose between the devil she knew and the one she didn't. 15 hours until her life changed forever. She walked back to her car, back to her apartment, back to the space between choices. She climbed the stairs to her apartment, unlocked the door, stepped inside. The envelope was on her kitchen table. She hadn't left it there. Her hand went to the knife in her boot. Scanned the apartment. Nothing. No one. Just the envelope. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside, a single photograph. Dr. Silas Brennan, her therapist, walking to his car outside his office. And written on the back in elegant script, everyone you care about is already in play. Choose wisely. Midnight, the place on 7th. Don't be late. Mara sat down at her kitchen table. The photograph in front of her. The choice staring her in the face. Run and watch everyone she loved become collateral damage. Or step into the darkness and become something more. Something dangerous. Something necessary. Something that might finally answer the question that had haunted her since Aurora Hospital. Was her instinct cowardice or survival? Fear or gift curse or calling outside the sun continued to rise. The city woke up. Normal people went to normal jobs and lived normal lives. Mara Bennett sat at her table and made a choice that would either save her or destroy her. She picked up her phone, texted the number Adrian Voss had used. I'll be there. The response came instantly. Good. Wear something you can run in. Tonight might get complicated. Mara set down the phone, looked at her reflection in the dark screen. Still human, still scarred, still here. She had 15 hours until her life changed forever. 15 hours until she stepped out of the shadows and into the light. 15 hours until she became visible. And God help anyone who tried to make her disappear. Again. Dawn broke over the city like a wound. Mara hadn't slept, couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the photograph of Dr. Silas Brennan walking to his car, unaware that someone was watching. Unaware that his life had become leverage in a game Mara didn't understand. She sat at her kitchen table, the envelope in front of her, the choice behind her. She'd already texted Adrian Voss, already agreed to meet him at the place on 7th, already stepped off the cliff. Now she was just waiting to see if she'd fly or fall. Her phone rang at 7:32 a.m. Unknown number, again. She answered without speaking. Smart choice. Adrian Voss's voice, smooth as expensive whiskey. A car will pick you up in 20 minutes. Bring nothing. Tell no one. How do I know this isn't a trap? You don't. A pause. But you're going to come anyway, because the alternative is watching everyone you care about become collateral damage. And you're not the kind of person who runs when other people are in danger. He knew. Somehow he knew about Aurora Hospital, about the guilt, about the 4 colleagues who died because Mara had run. This time she wouldn't run. 20 minutes, as she said. Good girl. Click. Mara showered, changed into jeans, boots, a dark sweater. The kind of clothes you could move in, fight in, run in. She didn't know which she'd need. The knife went back into her boot. Her phone went into her pocket. Everything else stayed behind. If this went wrong, she didn't want anyone tracing her movements. The black sedan arrived at 7:52 a.m. No headlights, no engine noise. Just there like it had always been there. The back door opened. K.L. Thorne sat inside. The same man from the diner. 50 years old with the kind of military posture that never really faded. But up close in daylight, Mara could see what she'd missed before. His skin was too perfect, too smooth, like porcelain instead of flesh. His eyes reflected the morning light like an animal's, and when he smiled, his canines were just a fraction too long. "Miss Bennett," he said, "we don't have much time." She climbed in. The door closed with a sound like a bank vault ceiling. The sedan pulled away smoothly, silent, like a shark through dark water. Cale handed her a bottle of water and a protein bar. "Eat," he said. "Adrian said you haven't had a proper meal in 2 days. He seems to know everything about me. He makes it his business to know everything about everyone. It's kept him alive for 3.5 centuries. Mara unwrapped the protein bar. Her hands were steady. That surprised her. She'd expected tremors, expected the ice spiders crawling up her spine. But she felt calm, focused, like the part of her brain that had kept her alive at Aurora Hospital had finally woken up after 3 years of sleeping. "How long have you worked for him?" she asked. 32 years. Cale glanced at her. "He turned me in 1993. Budapest. I took a bullet meant for him." "You were human." "CIA. I thought I was hunting a terrorist." He smiled. "Turned out I was hunting the one person keeping Eastern Europe from descending into a supernatural bloodbath." The sedan wound through empty streets, heading east toward the industrial district. "Did he ask your permission?" Mara asked. "Before he turned you," Cale's expression shifted. "Something like respect." "He asked, explained what it meant. Gave me 3 days to decide." He looked at her directly. "Adrian doesn't force loyalty. He earns it. You'll see." 20 minutes later, they pulled into an underground garage beneath what looked like an abandoned warehouse. Security cameras tracked their movement. Armed guards, human and otherwise, watched from elevated positions. "This is the sanctum," Keiko said as they exited the car. "Neutral ground, owned by no house, claimed by no faction. It's where the blood accords were signed in 1823. He led her through steel doors into a space that didn't match the exterior. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, art that belonged in museums. And people, dozens of them, human and vampire, mixing freely, all moving with purpose. "War rooms this way," Cale said. They descended a staircase into a command center that would make Pentagon analysts around jealous. Screens displayed maps, surveillance feeds, financial data. A dozen people worked at terminals coordinating something massive. Adrian Voss stood at the center, studying a 3-dimensional hologram of Echo's diner. He looked up when they entered. In the fluorescent light of the diner, he'd been handsome, striking. Here in the sanctum's carefully calibrated lighting, he was something else entirely. Beautiful in the way a blade is beautiful. All sharp edges and dangerous curves. The kind of face that made you forget to breathe. And those eyes, gray as winter storms, old as cathedrals, watching her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. "Mara." He said her name like a prayer. "Thank you for coming." "Did I have a choice?" "Always." He gestured to the hologram. "But before you decide what to do next, you should understand what you're stepping into." The next 6 hours were a masterclass in survival. Cale started with basics, vampire physiology, strengths and weaknesses. "We're not magical," he explained, demonstrating on a training dummy. "We're biological, altered humans with enhanced capabilities and significant drawbacks. Speed, strength, heightened senses, rapid healing, but also UV light caused burns. Sunlight was lethal with prolonged exposure. Running water was a myth. Garlic was annoying, not harmful. Stakes through the heart worked, but so did decapitation or massive trauma. Forget everything you learned from movies," Cale said. Then they moved to hunter tactics, UV grenades, Silver-jacketed rounds designed to fragment inside the body. Blessed weapons, psychological warfare, Kale called it. Only works if you believe it does. Tactical formations, kill boxes, extraction protocols. Mara absorbed it all. Her medic training kicked in. Anatomy, physiology, the mechanics of trauma. She'd spent 3 years trying to forget Aurora Hospital. Now she was using those same skills to understand how to kill the unkillable. Adrian watched from the observation deck. Never speaking, never interfering. Just watching with those ancient eyes. Around noon, KL handed her a combat knife. "Show me what you remember," he said. Mara's hands closed around the grip. Muscle memory from self-defense classes she'd taken after Aurora Hospital. After the nightmare started, she moved through the forms. Strike, parry, disarm. Kale nodded. "Good, you haven't forgotten." "I remember a lot of things I wish I could forget." "Memory is a weapon," he said. "The question is whether you're wielding it or it's wielding you." By mid-afternoon, Adrian finally descended from the observation deck. "Kale, give us a moment," he said. Kale nodded, left without a word. Adrian and Mara stood alone in the training room. The silence stretched between them like a living thing. "You're doing well," he said finally. "I'm terrified." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." He moved closer. "But terror makes you stupid. You need to find the line between them." "Is that what you've done for 300 years? 347. His voice was soft. "And yes, every day. The moment you lose your fear is the moment you die." He pulled out a tablet, showed her surveillance footage from Echo's diner. The laser, her diving between him and the bullet. "Why did you do it?" he asked. Mara watched her own movement on the screen. Saw the moment her body decided before her brain caught up. "I don't know," she said. "Instinct. The same instinct that saved you at Aurora Hospital." She flinched. "That instinct killed 4 people. "No," his voice was sharp, final. "A shooter killed 4 people. Your instinct saved 23 patients in that ICU ward. The ones you evacuated before you ran." Mara looked up at him. "How do you know that?" "Because I read the full report. Not the sanitized version they gave the review board. The complete incident analysis." He pulled up another file on the tablet. "You ordered a code white evacuation 3 minutes before the shooting started. 23 critical patients moved to the cardiac wing. All of them survived." The words hit her like a physical blow. The board said what they needed to say to avoid a lawsuit. Easier to blame a nurse who abandoned her post than admit their security protocols failed. Adrian's expression was cold, furious. "You saved lives, Mara. More lives than you lost. Make peace with that." She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Adrian stepped closer, close enough that she could smell that cold scent again, like winter and stone and something ancient. "You have a gift," he said quietly. "You see danger before it arrives. You read patterns in chaos. That's not trauma. That's not broken. That's rare, valuable, dangerous." There's that word again, valuable. Because it's true. He reached out, touched her shoulder. His hand was cool through her sweater. "I've lived 3.5 centuries. I've seen hundreds of humans with potential. But someone who acts on pure instinct, who saves lives without calculating the cost." He paused. "That's priceless. What do you want from me, honestly?" He smiled, sad, ancient. "I want to know why you did it. You didn't know what I was. You didn't know if I was a good man or a criminal or something worse. You just saw danger and stepped in front of it." "Why blame?" Mara was quiet for a long moment. "At Aurora Hospital," she said finally. "I hesitated. My unit stopped. 4 people died because I second-guessed an order." She met his eyes. "At the diner, I didn't hesitate. I just moved. And maybe I wanted to prove I wasn't a coward. Maybe I wanted to save someone for once, instead of surviving while everyone else dies." A bitter laugh. "Or maybe I just have a death wish and good reflexes." "You're not a coward," Adrian said softly. "Cowards don't step in front of bullets. They don't meet vampires alone. They don't sit in dark rooms with monsters and demand answers." He moved to the window, looked out at the Sanctum's underground training facility. "You have an instinct for survival that wars with a compulsion for sacrifice," he said. "It's rare, dangerous, and exactly what I need." Before Mara could respond, Kale burst back into the room. "We have a problem," he said. "The wire commander Castellan gave you, it's been compromised." Adrian's expression went cold. "Show me." They moved to the command center. Kale pulled up a frequency analysis on the main screen. "This is standard FBI issue," he said, highlighting one waveform. This is what Castellan's wire should be broadcasting on. He highlighted a second waveform. Different. Wrong. This is what it's actually broadcasting on. Private channel, encrypted, routing through offshore servers that trace back to shell companies in the Caymans. Adrian's jaw tightened. House Crane. Gets worse. Kale pulled up financial records. Agent Dante Roth, $2.4 million deposited in his account over the past 6 months, routed through the same shell companies. Mara's stomach dropped. Dante's working for them. He's not just working for them, Adrian said quietly. He's running the operation. Castellan thinks she's investigating me. She doesn't know she's being used to set up a kill box. He pulled up blueprints of Echo's diner, started marking positions. Tonight's meeting was never about recruitment, he said. It was about getting me into the open. Castellan's team surrounds the diner. Dante triggers UV charges, 3 times standard payload, designed to kill everyone inside. He looked at Mara. Including you. Why me? Because you're a witness. You saw me survive the first assassination attempt. You saw my people move too fast. You know too much. His voice was flat, factual. House Crane doesn't leave loose ends. Mara thought about the photographs, the surveillance, Dr. Silas Brennan walking to his car. So what do we do, she asked. Adrian smiled. Dangerous. Predatory. We turned the trap around. The plan came together in layers. First, Mara would go to the meeting tonight as planned. Wear Castellan's wire, play her part. But Adrian's team would fortify Echo's diner first, replace the windows with UV reflective glass, install mirrors in strategic positions, rewire the electrical system so they could cut power on demand, position their own people as customers before Castellan's team arrived. Jasper will be working that night, Mara said. He can't be part of this, Adrian nodded. We'll create a gas leak in the kitchen 2 hours before the operation. Building inspector will evacuate the diner. Jasper stays safe. We have cover for final preparations. What about real customers? We'll fill the diner with our people before any civilians arrive. Anyone who walks in after 9 p.m. gets turned away. Health code violation. Temporary closure. He met her eyes. No innocent casualties. That's a line I don't cross. And they spent the afternoon rehearsing. Mara would arrive at 8:45 p.m., sit in her usual section, visible from all angles. Adrian would enter at 9 p.m. exactly, sit in the corner booth. They'd have a conversation designed to sound incriminating, but prove nothing. When Castellan gave the signal to move in, Mara would drop behind the counter. Kale would cut the power. Then they'd trigger their countermeasures. What countermeasures? Mara asked. A woman appeared from the shadows, pale, beautiful, dangerous. That's where I come in, she said. Adrian tensed, almost imperceptibly, but Mara saw it. Sarah Crane, he said. I didn't expect you. Sarah Crane. Mara recognized the surname, House Crane, the enemy. But Sarah didn't move like an enemy. She moved like someone who'd been running for a very long time. I need to speak with you, Sarah said, privately. Anything you need to say, you can say in front of Mara. Sarah glanced at Mara. Her eyes were the color of smoke. Bold, tired. Then I'll be direct, she said. My father, Victor Crane, is planning to kill you tonight. Agent Roth is his asset. The UV charges are his design. The entire operation is his. I know, Adrian said. What you don't know is that I'm the one who told him about your meetings at the diner. The room went silent. Kale's hand went to his weapon. Adrian didn't move. Just watched Sarah with those ancient, calculating eyes. Why, he asked. Quiet. Deadly. Because 50 years ago you killed the only person I ever loved. Sarah's voice cracked. A werewolf named Thomas. He was crossing through your territory. You executed him for violating the Accords. I remember, Adrian said. He was carrying classified information about the treaty renegotiations. Information that would have started a war. He was my everything, Sarah whispered, and you killed him. So you've spent 50 years planning revenge. No, she looked up, tears on her face. Not blood, real tears. I spent 50 years planning revenge, and then I realized something. Victor didn't care that I loved Thomas. He cared that I loved someone impure, someone beneath our station. She pulled out a tablet, showed them footage. Victor Crane, 500 years old, elegant, terrifying. Standing in a marble hall. Love for lesser beings is weakness, he was saying. My daughter forgot that, so I reminded her. The footage cut to an execution chamber. Thomas, the werewolf, chained, bleeding, and Victor standing over him with a silver blade. This is what happens when we forget who we are, Victor said. He drove the blade home. Sarah turned off the tablet. Her hands were shaking. Victor set Thomas up, she said. Gave him fake information. Made sure he'd cross your territory. Made sure you'd have no choice but to execute him under a court law. She looked at Adrian. You didn't kill the love of my life. My father did. And he's been using my grief to control me for 50 years. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Why tell me now, he asked. Because tonight Victor plans to kill you. Blame it on Castellan's operation. Start a war between vampires and human law enforcement. Sarah pulled up more files. Emails, financial records, communication logs. I've been feeding him information for 6 months, leading him to this moment. And I'm done. What do you want? I want to help you turn his trap around. I want to capture Dante Roth alive so he can testify about Victor's infiltration. I want the conclave to see what my father has become. She met his eyes. And I want you to know that I'm sorry for 50 years of hatred, for helping Victor, for everything. Adrian studied her. The silence stretched. Finally, he nodded. You'll attend the operation as Dante's backup, he said. When the shooting starts, you capture him. We need him alive. Agreed. And Sarah, Adrian's voice was soft, dangerous. If you betray us tonight, I won't give you a quick death. I know, she said. I wouldn't expect anything less. She left as silently as she'd arrived. KL waited 30 seconds. Then you believe her. I believe her pain, Adrian said. Whether that makes her ally or enemy, we'll find out tonight. He turned to Mara. This just got significantly more dangerous. If you want out, say so now. No judgment, no consequences. Mara thought about the photographs, about Jasper and Dr. Silas Brennan and all the innocent people who'd become collateral damage if Victor Crane got what he wanted. I'm in, she said. Adrian smiled, serene, grateful, and then we have 9 hours to prepare. The next 9 hours passed in a blur of preparation and planning and controlled chaos. Mara watched Adrian's people work, replacing windows, installing mirrors, rewiring electrical systems. They moved with inhuman precision, completing in hours what should have taken days. Around 6 p.m., Mara's phone rang. Jasper, she answered. Mara, it's me. Listen, building inspector, just shut down the diner. Gas leak in the kitchen, says it's going to take 2 days to fix. He sounded exhausted, defeated. I'm sorry, kid. I know you needed the shifts. It's okay, Jasper, really. You sure I know money's tight? Mara felt something crack in her chest. Jasper had been hard on her, mean even. But he'd given her a job when no one else would, kept her working when she probably should have been fired months ago. I'm sure, she said. Take care of yourself, okay? You too, kid. He hung up. Mara sat in the sanctum's break room, staring at her phone, thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. He'll be safe. She looked up. Adrian stood in the doorway, backlit by the quarter lights, looking less like a man and more like something carved from shadow and stone. You promise? She asked. I promise. He moved into the room, sat across from her. I know what it's like to care about people who could become collateral damage. It's why I've spent 300 years building systems to protect them. The Accords. The Accords, neutral zones, treaties, rules. He smiled, bitter. Most people think I'm a monster playing at civilization. They don't understand that I'm a monster trying to prevent other monsters from destroying everything. Why do you care? Mara asked. You could take what you want. You're powerful enough. Because I remember what it was like to be human, he said quietly. I remember being 28 years old, dying of consumption in a Vienna hospital. I remember a woman offering me a choice. Die in 3 days or live forever. And you chose forever. I chose survival, and I've spent 3.5 centuries trying to figure out if I made the right choice. He looked at her. Most days I think I didn't. But then someone like you comes along, someone who saves lives without thinking, someone who sees the best in people even when they're monsters. I don't see the best in you, going, Mara said. I see someone who's tired, someone who's lonely, someone who's been carrying the weight of the world for so long they forgot how to put it down. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. You're right, he said finally. I am tired, I am lonely, and I haven't put down that weight in 3 centuries. Why not? Because the moment I do, someone else picks it up, and they won't carry it the way I do. They'll use it to crush people instead of protect them. He stood, moved to the window overlooking the training floor. After tonight, he said, assuming we survive, you don't have to stay. I meant what I said. You get to choose your life. What if I want to stay? He turned, looked at her with those ancient, impossible eyes. Then I'll teach you everything I know, and I'll watch you become something extraordinary. Before Mara could respond, Kale appeared in the doorway. It's time, he said. Castellan's team is mobilizing. Dante just filed the operational plan. Adrian nodded. Show me. They returned to the command center. The main screen displayed intercepted communications. Dante's voice cold and professional. All units final brief at 2030 hours. Target will be in position at 2100. We move on my signal. Castellan's voice trusting and doomed. Understood. Rules of engagement. Capture if possible. Neutralize if necessary. UV charges are authorized. What Castellan didn't know, those UV charges were 3 times regulation strength, designed to kill, not capture. Adrian pulled up the diner's modified blueprint. Positions, he said. The team assembled. KL, Sarah, 3 others Mara didn't know, all vampires, all moving with that inhuman precision. KL, you're on electrical. Cut power on my signal. Understood. Sarah, you're back up to Dante. When he moves, you move. Take him alive. Got it. Everyone else defensive positions. Remember, we don't start the fight, we finish it. He turned to Mara. You're the most important piece on the board tonight, he said. Without you, this doesn't work. But that also makes you the biggest target. Stay low, stay behind cover. And if it goes wrong, if I give you the signal, you run. Understood. What's the signal? I'll say your name, just your name. Nothing else. When you hear it, you run and you don't look back. Mara nodded. Adrian stepped closer, close enough that she could see the faint silver flecks in his gray eyes. Thank you, he said quietly, for trusting me, for stepping into this darkness, for being brave when you had every reason to run. I'm terrified, she admitted. I know. He reached out, touched her face. His hand was cool against her skin, gentle. But you're doing it anyway. That's the definition of courage. For a moment they stood like that, vampire and human, monster and woman, separated by 300 years and united by something neither of them fully understood. Then Kale cleared his throat. Sorry to interrupt, he said, but Castellan just called. She wants to see you, Mara. Final briefing before the operation. Adrian stepped back. The moment shattered like glass. Go, he said. Wear her wire. Play your part. We'll be watching. Mara met Commander Thea Castellan at a safe house in the industrial district. Same government haircut, same professional demeanor. But now Mara could see what she'd missed before. The exhaustion, the determination, the absolute conviction that she was doing the right thing. Thea Castellan wasn't corrupt. She was being used, and she had no idea. Thank you for coming, Thea said. I know this is asking a lot. It's okay. Thea pulled out a new wire, smaller than the first one, more sophisticated. This is the latest tech, she said, completely undetectable. Just wear it under your uniform. We'll hear everything. She helped Mara attach it between her shoulder blades, right where the first one had been. You're going to do great, Thea said. Just act natural. Serve him like any other customer. We'll handle the rest. Dante appeared in the doorway. Mara felt her skin crawl. Teams in position, he said. Snipers on the roofs. Tactical units on standby. UV charges placed and armed. He smiled at Mara. Cold, reptilian. You ready to be a hero? I'm ready to do the right thing, Mara said. Something flickered in his expression. Too fast to read. Good, he said, because after tonight, everything changes. He had no idea how right he was. Mara left the safe house at 8:30 p.m., drove to Echo's diner in her own car, parked 2 blocks away like she always did. The diner looked normal, lights on, open sign glowing. But Mara could see the differences now that she knew what to look for. The windows, too clean, too reflective. The customers inside, moving with that telltale precision. The electrical box, freshly rewired. She took a deep breath, checked her phone. A text from Adrian. Remember, when you hear your name, you run. She deleted the text, pocketed her phone, walked toward the diner. Above her on rooftops, she couldn't see snipers train their scopes. Around her in positions she couldn't identify, Castellan's team waited. And somewhere in the darkness, Victor Crane watched and smiled and prepared to watch his plan unfold. Mara pushed open the diner door. The bell chimed, newly installed. KL's idea. It would mask other sounds when things went loud. She clocked in, tied her apron, took her position. Around her, vampires disguised as customers read newspapers and shared fries and pretended to be human. 8:47 p.m. 13 minutes until Adrian arrived. 13 minutes until the trap sprung. 13 minutes until Mara Bennett became the most important person in a war she barely understood. She poured coffee, wiped down tables, moved through the familiar rhythms of her job, and waited. 9 p.m. The door opened. Adrian Voss stepped into Echo's diner. Same designer suit, same predatory grace, same ancient eyes that found hers immediately across the room. He walked to the corner booth, sat down, and Mara picked up the coffee pot and walked toward a future that would either save her or destroy her. The game had begun, and God helped them all when it ended. The coffee pot was heavy in Mara's hands. She walked toward table 6, toward Adrian Voss sitting in his corner booth, toward the invisible line between her old life and whatever came next. Every step felt like walking underwater. The wire between her shoulder blades transmitted her heartbeat to Thea Castellan's team, to Dante Roth, who was planning to kill them all, to Victor Crane watching from somewhere in the darkness. Coffee? Mara's voice was steady. 3 years of waitressing had taught her how to sound normal when everything inside was screaming. Please, Orion said. His gray eyes held hers for a fraction of a second. Ready. She poured, hands steady, no tremor. Anything else? Just your company, if you have a moment. She slid into the booth across from him. The signal Thea was waiting for. On rooftops across the street, snipers adjusted their scopes. In tactical vans 2 blocks away, teams prepared to move. In the diner's kitchen, Cale Thorne stood by the electrical panel, waiting for Adrian's signal. You look tired, Adrian said, loud enough for the wire to catch. Strange things happening lately. Haven't been sleeping well, Mara replied, playing her part. Bullet holes tend to complicate life. I imagine so. He sipped his coffee. For show, she realized. The liquid never actually touched his lips. I wanted to thank you properly, perhaps discuss future opportunities. I have a job. You have a tie that pays $9 an hour and offers no health insurance. I'm offering something better. This was the script, the conversation designed to sound incriminating while proving nothing. Vampire King recruiting a useful human. Outside, Dante Roth gave the signal. All units prepare to move. On my mark. 3, 2. The world exploded into light. UV charges detonated. Not the tactical flashbangs Thea had authorized. These were 3 times more powerful. Military grade, designed to kill. Blinding white light flooded the diner. Searing, burning, the kind of light that turned vampire flesh to ash. Mara dropped behind the counter. Exactly as rehearsed. But the screaming was real. Adrian's people scattered. The businessman by the window. The couple sharing fries. All of them caught in the UV blast. Skin blistering, smoke rising. Except the UV reflective glass did exactly what Cale had promised. The light bounced, scattered, created interference patterns that weakened the blast by 60%. The mirrors positioned throughout the diner fragmented the beams, and Adrian's corner booth, carefully calculated, sat in the one shadow the explosions couldn't reach. He stood, unharmed, furious. The front door burst open. Thea Castellan's team flooded in, federal agents, weapons drawn, moving with professional precision. Nobody move, federal agents. Thea leveled her weapon at Adrian. Adrian Voss, you're under arrest for violations of... The gunshots cut her off. 3 rounds, center mass, professional, fatal. Dante Roth stood behind her, his weapon still raised, smoke curling from the barrel. Sorry, Commander, he said. Change of plans. Thea went down hard, blood spreading across her tactical vest. Mara's medic training kicked in faster than thought. She crawled from behind the counter, toward Thea's fallen body, toward the woman who'd tried to use her but didn't deserve to die. Everybody down, Mara screamed. But nobody was listening. Cale cut the power. Darkness swallowed the diner. Emergency lights flickered on. Red, pulsing, like a heartbeat in hell. Gunfire erupted. Thea's agents returned fire. Blindly, hitting walls and windows in each other. Case. Pandemonium. Exactly what Dante wanted. 4 figures crashed through the kitchen entrance. House crane vampires, moving with inhuman speed. Weapons drawn. This was the real assault. The killing blow. Eliminate Thea's team. Execute Adrian. Blame the whole massacre on a botched federal operation. But Dante had underestimated 2 things. First, Adrian Voss hadn't survived 347 years by being careless. And second, Mara Bennett wasn't the broken girl they thought she was. She reached Thea's body. The commander was still breathing. Barely. Blood pumping from 3 entry wounds. No exit wounds. The bullets were still inside. Mara's hands moved on autopilot. Pressure on the wounds, Check airway, assess bleeding. Stay with me, she whispered. Help is coming. Above them, the real battle unfolded. Adrian moved like smoke through the darkness. Disarmed a house crane vampire in one fluid motion. The crack of bones breaking echoed like gunfire. Kale engaged two more near the kitchen. Hand-to-hand combat. Brutal, efficient, 32 years of CIA training merged with vampire speed. The businessman, one of Adrian's people, tackled a federal agent reaching for UV grenades, knocked the weapon away, shouted, "Friendlies, we're friendlies." But in the chaos, nobody could tell friend from enemy. Sarah Crane appeared from the shadows. She moved behind Dante Roth, silent, precise, grabbed him from behind and slammed his head into the counter. Once, twice, three times. He dropped, unconscious but alive. "Target secured," Sarah shouted. On the roof across the street, Victor Crane's sniper fired. The bullet shattered the new UV reflective glass, punched through the diner's carefully constructed defenses. One of Adrian's people went down. The couple by the window. The woman. Smoke rising from the silver-jacketed round embedded in her chest. And then the front door opened. Everyone froze. Victor Crane stood in the doorway, 500 years old. Elegant in a way that made Adrian look young. Gray suit that probably cost more than Mara's car. Silver hair swept back from a face carved from marble and malice. He looked like someone's distinguished grandfather. He looked like death dressed for dinner. "Adrian," he said. His voice was cultured, European. The accent of someone who'd learned English before it was modern. "Mon ami, 200 years I've waited for this moment." The diner went silent. Even the wounded stopped screaming. Victor stepped inside. 4 more house crane vampires materialized behind him. These weren't soldiers. These were enforcers. The kind of creatures that gave other vampires nightmares. Adrian stood in the ruins of his trap, blood on his suit, rage in his ancient eyes. "Victor," he said, voice like ice cracking, "you violated neutral ground. The Accords." "The Accords," Victor laughed. "Beautiful, terrible. You still believe in those antiquated treaties? Still think rules matter in a world built on power?" He moved deeper into the diner, stepped over Thea's body without looking down. "Do you remember 1823, he asked, "the cathedral in New York, when we signed those precious accords?" Adrian's expression didn't change, but Mara saw his hands clench. "I remember." "Do you remember what you took from me?" The air between them crackled with 2 centuries of hate. Victor pulled out a photograph. Old, faded. A woman. Human. Beautiful. "Catherine," Victor said. "My wife. The only human I ever loved. We were going to leave together. Start over. Abandon this world of politics and power." He looked at the photograph with something almost like tenderness. "And you killed her." "She was smuggling information about the treaty renegotiations," Adrian said. Quiet. Final. "Information that would have started a war. I gave her a choice. Stop or face Accord justice. She chose poorly. She chose love." Victor's mask cracked. Fury and grief and madness bleeding through. "She chose me, and you executed her like a criminal. I executed her like a traitor, because that's what she was." Victor tore the photograph in half. "And now," he said, "I'm going to teach you what it feels like, to lose the one thing you care about, to watch them die knowing you could have saved them." His eyes found Mara. She was still kneeling beside Thea, hands covered in blood, trying to keep a dying woman alive. "The waitress," Victor said, mocking, "the trauma nurse, who saved the great Adrian Voss." He moved toward her. Adrian stepped between them. "Don't," Adrian said. "One word, absolute." "Or what?" Victor smiled. "You'll kill me in front of all these witnesses, federal agents and vampires and security cameras. You'll break your precious accords." "For her." "Yes." The admission hung in the air like smoke. Victor's smile widened. "Ah," he said, "so it's true. The great Adrian Voss, the enforcer of accords, the keeper of peace, finally found something worth breaking rules for." He looked at Mara. "Tell me, girl, do you know what you've done? You've made a monster care, and caring monsters are the most dangerous kind." Mara met his eyes, 500 years of cruelty staring back at her. "Better a caring monster than an empty one," she said. Victor's expression went cold. "Brave words. Let's see how brave you are when—" He moved, vampire speed, inhuman. A blur of motion aimed at Mara's throat. Adrian intercepted him. The impact shook the diner. 2 ancient vampires, colliding with the force of freight trains. They went through the wall. into the street, glass and drywall exploding around them. Mara scrambled back to Thea, applied more pressure. The bleeding wasn't stopping. 3 entry wounds, damage to lungs, maybe liver. Internal bleeding for sure. She needed equipment, surgical tools, a hospital. All she had was her hands and 3 years of trauma nursing. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Please, stay with me." Thea's eyes fluttered open, focused on Mara's face. "Dante," she breathed, blood on her lips. "He shot me. Why? I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "You knew," Mara hesitated, then nodded. Thea tried to laugh, coughed blood instead. "Used by my own agent. Stupid." "Not stupid, human. There's a difference." Outside, the battle raged. Adrian and Victor fought in the street, speed and strength beyond human comprehension. Victor had 200 years on Adrian, more power, more experience. He was winning. Adrian went down, Victor's hand around his throat, lifting him off the ground like he weighed nothing. "This is where it ends," Victor said. 200 years of waiting, 200 years of planning. And finally, I get to watch you die, knowing you failed to protect her." He pulled a stake from his coat, not wood, silver, the kind that would pierce vampire flesh and burn from the inside, aimed for Adrian's heart. Mara saw it happen as if time had slowed, saw Victor raise the stake, saw Adrian's eyes find hers through the broken diner wall, saw him mouth one word: run, her name, the signal, time to run, time to save herself while everyone else died. Just like Aurora Hospital, just like always. But Mara Bennett was done running. She stood, grabbed the sniper rifle from the fallen federal agent near the window, the same agent who'd been reaching for UV grenades, muscle memory from self-defense training, from the shooting range she'd visited after Aurora Hospital, from the part of her that remembered how to survive. She aimed through the broken wall, center mass, breathe, squeeze. The shot echoed like judgment. The silver-jacketed round hit Victor Crane in the shoulder, spun him around, made him drop the stake, made him drop Adrian. Victor turned, looked at Mara with absolute fury. Insolent, human. Adrian didn't hesitate. Grabbed Victor from behind, one hand on his skull, one hand on his brow, twisted. The crack echoed through the street. Victor went down. Not dead. Vampires were hard to kill, but paralyzed, spine severed. He'd heal eventually, but not tonight. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. The conclave had been alerted. Supernatural UN, the authority that enforced the blood accords. Black SUVs screeched to a halt. Figures in dark suits poured out, some human, some decidedly not. Freeze conclave enforcement. The fighting stopped. House Crane vampires tried to flee, didn't make it 10 feet before conclave agents tackled them. Silver restraints, UV suppression fields, technology that shouldn't exist but did. Sarah Crane stood over Dante Roth's unconscious body. "This one's mine," she said. "He has information you need." Thea Castellan was loaded onto a stretcher. Paramedics, human and otherwise, worked to stabilize her. One of them looked at Mara. "You did this?" he asked, gesturing to the pressure bandages, the tourniquets made from torn tablecloths. "I used to be a nurse." "You saved her life. Another 5 minutes and she'd have bled out." He moved away, continued treatment. Mara stood in the ruins of Echo's diner, hands covered in Thea's blood, rifle still in her grip. Adrian walked toward her, moving carefully, like she was something fragile that might break. "You didn't run," he said. "No. I gave you the signal." "I know." "Why?" Mara set down the rifle, looked at her hands, the blood, the tremor that wasn't there anymore. "Because I'm done running," she said. She looked up at him. "You asked me why I saved you at the diner, why I stepped in front of that bullet. I didn't have an answer then." She took a breath. "I do now. I did it because, for the first time since Aurora Hospital, I saw someone worth saving, and I wanted to prove to myself that I could." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. Genuine. Grateful. Young despite his ancient eyes. "You did," he said. "You proved it." A conclave agent approached. Female, ancient, power radiating off her like heat. "Adrian Voss," she said. "Arbiter Meredith requests your presence. Emergency session. 1 hour." "Understood." The agent looked at Mara. "The human witness as well. She'll need to testify." Before Mara could respond, she was gone. "What does that mean?" Mara asked. "It means," Adrian said, "that in 1 hour you're going to stand before the conclave and tell them everything that happened here tonight. And depending on what you say, this ends in justice or war." "No pressure then." He almost laughed. "None at all. They had 53 minutes to prepare. The cathedral was older than the city around it, built in 1785, abandoned in 1823 after the blood accords were signed, maintained by the conclave as neutral ground where disputes were settled without bloodshed. Usually. Mara walked through doors that hadn't seen prayers in the 200 years. Adrian beside her, Kale and Sarah flanking them like guards, inside hundreds of beings that shouldn't exist. Vampires from a dozen houses, dressed in everything from ancient formal wear to modern suits. Werewolves, she could tell by the way they moved, predatory, controlled. Witches, humans with eyes that saw too much, and things she didn't have names for yet, all of them watching her, walking toward judgment. Arbiter Meredith sat at the head of the chamber. 800 years old, she looked like someone's kindly grandmother. White hair, gentle face, soft hands folded in her lap. Her eyes were the color of nuclear winter. "This conclave is convened," she said, her voice carried without volume. "Absolute, final. We address accusations of accord violations by House Crane." Victor Crane was dragged forward, still paralyzed, bound in silver chains, 4 conclave enforcers holding him. His eyes found Adrian, found Mara, promised death. "The witness will approach," Meredith said. Mara walked forward, every eye in the cathedral following her. She raised her right hand. "Do you swear to provide honest testimony under penalty of accord sanctions?" "I do." "State your name." "Mara Bennett, former trauma nurse, Aurora Hospital." She paused. "Current human liaison candidate." Something like approval crossed Meredith's face. For the next 40 minutes, Mara told everything. The laser sight, saving Adrian, the photographs, Thea and Dante's recruitment, the wire, the diner operation, Dante's betrayal, the modified UV charges, Victor's attack. She didn't embellish, didn't dramatize, just laid out facts. Clear, chronological, verifiable. When she finished, Victor stood. The paralysis had worn off enough for him to speak. "This testimony is fabricated," he said, voice dripping contempt. "She's Adrian's collaborator. She has no credibility, no proof." "I have proof," Mara said quietly. She nodded to Kale. He activated a screen. Dante Ross' interrogation footage played, his confession, the financial records. Communication logs showing him reporting directly to House Crane operatives. "Agent Roth gave this testimony voluntarily," Mara continued, "under truth compulsion, witnessed by 3 neutral conclave observers. He detailed how House Crane recruited him, supplied modified UV charges, ordered him to execute Commander Castellan and her team." She turned to face Victor directly. "He also provided names of 17 other human agents on your payroll. The conclave has already verified 12 of them." Silence filled the cathedral. Arbiter Meredith spoke. "Victor Crane, how do you answer these accusations?" "This is a conspiracy," Victor said, "orchestrated by Adrian Voss to destroy my house. The evidence is fabricated. The testimony is—" "The evidence is comprehensive," Meredith interrupted, voice like a blade. "Financial forensics confirm money transfers from House Crane accounts to Agent Roth. Ballistic analysis confirms the UV charges were manufactured exclusively for your house. And we have testimony from 3 separate witnesses." She gestured to Sarah, "including one of your own blood. She is anathema." Victor's composure cracked. "A traitor. Her word means nothing." "But mine, Duppo," Mara said. Every eye turned to her. "I'm human," she continued. "No house allegiance, no supernatural agenda. Just someone who watched you try to start a war. Commander Castellan is fighting for her life because your operative shot her. 3 federal agents died tonight, and you would have killed thousands more if you'd succeeded." She stepped closer. "Victor Crane violated the blood accords, infiltrated human government, attempted assassination on neutral ground, endangered the masquerade that keeps all of you safe." She looked directly at him. "If you let this stand, you're telling every vampire that rules don't matter, that chaos is acceptable." She turned to face the assembled conclave. "Do what's right, even if it's hard." She stepped back. The cathedral was silent. Arbiter Meredith stood. "The conclave will deliberate. All parties are dismissed." 2 hours later, the verdict came. Victor Crane guilty of accord violations, stripped of all territorial rights, assets frozen, sentenced to 500 years imprisonment in the conclave's highest security facility. His inner circle arrested. Pending trial. House Crane dissolved. Territories redistributed. The bounty on Mara's head nullified. Anyone who touched her would face capital sanctions. She was now under permanent accord protection. Adrian found her in the cathedral gardens afterward. She was sitting on a stone bench under bare trees, staring at nothing. "You did it," he said, sitting beside her. "House Crane is finished. Thea Castellan will survive. Dante Roth will face trial in both human and supernatural courts." He paused. "You're safe now, officially." Mara laughed, no humor in it. "I testified in front of vampires and witches about a government conspiracy. I'm never going to be safe again." "No," Adrian agreed, "but you'll be protected. There's a difference." They sat in silence. Dawn was still hours away, but the night felt less dark. "The Conclave made you an offer," Adrian said finally. "Human liaison. Someone who can move between both worlds, interpret situations, prevent conflicts before they start." "Sounds dangerous." "It is, but it's also important. And you're uniquely qualified." He looked at her. "Because you see clearly when everyone else is blinded by fear." "I'm not brave, I'm just tired of being afraid." "That's the same thing." Mara turned to look at him. Really look. 347 years old, powerful enough to level cities, dangerous enough to make other monsters nervous. But sitting here in the pre-dawn darkness, he just looked tired. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now, he smiled, sad, hopeful. "Now we rebuild. Help Thea's task force restructure. Make sure this doesn't happen again. If you want," he stood, offered his hand. "I'm not asking you to work for me. I'm asking if you want to work with me. Build something better. Keep the peace. Save lives." Mara looked at his extended hand. 3 days ago, she'd been nobody. A waitress with PTSD, a failed nurse carrying guilt like a stone. Now she was someone who'd testified before the conclave. Someone who couldn't go back to normal, even if she wanted to. She took his hand, stood. "No lies," she said, "ever. That's the deal." "No lies," he agreed. They walked back through the cathedral, past vampires and humans and things in between. Kale fell into step beside them, along with Sarah, who'd been pardoned by the conclave and offered a place in Adrian's house. "So what now?" Sarah asked. "Now," Adrian said, "we find Mara a better apartment, preferably one with actual security." "And a lock that works," Kale added. Mara smiled despite everything. They emerged into the pre-dawn darkness. The city sprawled before them, ordinary people sleeping in ordinary beds, unaware of the shadow wars fought to keep them safe. Black sedans waited at the curb. Mara paused on the cathedral steps, looked back one last time. She could see her reflection in the ancient doors. Pale, exhausted, but standing. Still human, still herself, still here. She climbed into the sedan. Adrian sat across from her, Kale in front, Sarah beside her. The door closed with that familiar vault-like sound. "Where to?" the driver asked. Adrian looked at Mara. "Your choice." "The sanctum," she said. "I need coffee, and a briefing on everything I just walked into." "Welcome to the team," Sarah said. The sedan pulled away from the cathedral. 2 months later, Mara stood in her new office at the sanctum, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, desk made of reclaimed wood, shelves filling with books on accord law and supernatural history. On her desk, 3 case files. Werewolf territory dispute in Montana. Witch coven conflict in New Orleans. Suspected vampire trafficking ring in Miami. Her first official assignments as human liaison. A knock on the door. "Come in," she said. Sarah entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you could use this," she said. "Thanks." Mara accepted the cup. Montana werewolves agreed to mediation. New Orleans witches are requesting me specifically. "You're making a name for yourself. Is that good or bad?" "Depends on who you ask." Sarah smiled. "For what it's worth, I've known Adrian for 130 years. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you." Before Mara could respond, her phone buzzed. Text from Adrian rooftop. "When you have a minute," Mara smiled, pocketed her phone. "Duty calls," she said. The elevator ride felt endless. Adrian was waiting when the doors opened, standing at the edge of the rooftop, looking out over the city. He turned when she approached. "You wanted to see me?" she asked. "Always," he smiled. "But right now, specifically, yes. The Montana situation. I have some insight that might help." They spent the next hour discussing pack dynamics and territory rights and the intricate politics of supernatural diplomacy, but eventually the work conversation faded. They stood at the rooftop edge. The city spread below them like a glittering map. "Can I ask you something?" Mara said. "Anything." "That night in the diner, when Victor had you, when you told me to run." She looked at him. "Did you think you were going to die?" Adrian was quiet for a moment. "Yes," he said finally. "I thought that was the end." He turned to face her fully. "But then you didn't run. You picked up that rifle and you saved me. Again. Why does that surprise you?" "Because I'm 347 years old. I've seen humans choose survival over sacrifice every single time." His voice was soft, wondering. "But you chose differently. You always choose differently." "Maybe I'm just bad at survival." "No," he stepped closer. "You're exceptionally good at survival. You just refuse to survive alone." The space between them felt electric. "Adrian," Mara said, "what are we doing?" "I don't know." He reached out, touched her face. His hand was cool against her skin. Gentle. "I haven't known what I was doing since the moment you stepped in front of that bullet. I'm human. You're not. I know. I'm going to age, get old, die. I know. I still have nightmares, days where I can barely function. I have 3.5 centuries of trauma and enough blood on my hands to fill oceans." He smiled, sad, real. "We're both damaged. The question is whether we're damaged in compatible ways." Mara laughed, couldn't help it. "That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. I'm out of practice. Give me another century." This time when he leaned in, she didn't pull away. The kiss was soft, careful, like he was afraid she might break. She kissed him back, harder, proving she wouldn't. When they finally pulled apart, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "I can't promise you forever," he said. "I can't promise you safety. I can't even promise you tomorrow." "Good," Mara said, "because I don't want promises. I want honesty. I want partnership. I want someone who sees me as an equal even though I'm human and mortal." "You're the bravest person I've ever met." "I'm really not." "You are." He pulled back slightly, looked at her with those ancient, impossible eyes. "And I'm terrified too, of losing you, of failing you, of not being worthy of the trust you've given me. Then we'll be terrified together." They stood on the rooftop as dawn broke over the city, human and vampire, mortal and eternal, damaged and healing, building something new from the wreckage of everything they'd survived. Mara looked out at the city, at all the people she was now sworn to protect, at the life she'd chosen instead of the one that had been chosen for her. "Ready?" Adrian asked. "For what?" "For everything." She smiled, took his hand. "Always." Far away in a cell buried beneath the earth, Victor Crane sat in darkness. 500 years of imprisonment stretched before him. 500 years to plan, 500 years to wait. He smiled in the darkness. Patience was something he'd learned over 5 centuries of existence. He could wait. And when he finally got out, when he finally got free, he'd make sure they understood what they'd taken from him. His eyes glowed red in the darkness. 500 years, he whispered to the empty cell. "I can wait."